He had thrown men twice his size out of nightclubs without breaking a sweat. He had never once been put on the ground. Then a small man in a plain black shirt walked past him, and 3 seconds later, the loudest man in the room was on his knees, unable to remember his own name. Nobody had ever made Marcus Webb look small. Not in 20 years of standing behind the most dangerous heavyweight boxer alive. Tonight, a stranger did it without raising his voice. This is the legend of the night a bodyguard learned that size is not the same thing as danger. The room. Las Vegas. A private afterparty in the penthouse lounge of a strip hotel. The kind of room with dim gold lighting, a wraparound window overlooking the desert lights, and a guest list short enough that everyone inside knew exactly how important they were supposed to feel. Champagne on ice. A DJ playing at half volume, so conversation could survive. The air carried perfume, cologne, and the specific electricity of a room full of people who had all, in one way or another, made it. Mike Tyson had fought that night. Another first-round statement, another highlight reel added to a career that had already turned him into a myth in his own lifetime. The party was for him, thrown by people who wanted to be near him more than they wanted to celebrate him. He held court near the bar, laughing loud, shaking hands, letting the night do what nights like this always did, standing 3 feet behind his right shoulder. Exactly where he had stood for 2 decades of these rooms was Marcus Webb. Marcus was not famous. He didn't want to be. He was the kind of man whose entire value was built on being the last obstacle between his employer and trouble, and he had built that value carefully. 6'4", 260 pounds, most of it earned in a gym, some of it earned in places far rougher than a gym. Former college linebacker, 2 years of amateur boxing that never quite turned professional, a decade of close protection work for musicians and athletes before Tyson's team hired him permanently. He had broken up fights with 3 men at once and walked away without a mark on him. He had never, not once in 20 years, been put on the ground. He didn't drink on the job, but he talked. Marcus liked to talk, especially late at night, especially to whoever was standing near him at the edge of the party, half watching the room, half performing for it. The small man in the corner, near the far window, away from the noise, stood a man nobody in the room recognized. Late 20s or early 30s, hard to place. 5'7", maybe 140 pounds. Black shirt, black slacks, no jewelry, no entourage. He held a glass of water he hadn't touched and watched the room the way a man watches something he's trying to understand rather than something he's trying to enjoy. He'd been invited by a promoter who owed him a favor from years back. A quiet favor, the kind that doesn't get talked about. Nobody at the party knew his name. Nobody had bothered to ask. He said very little. When people spoke near him, he listened completely. The way some men listen when they've spent a lifetime learning that most of what matters in a room isn't said out loud. Marcus noticed him around midnight, the way security men notice anyone who doesn't fit the shape of the crowd. Small, quiet, alone. Marcus filed it away as harmless and went back to holding court for the group of guests who had drifted toward him. It didn't stay harmless for long. The comment, a guest, a young actor trying too hard to be remembered, asked Marcus, loud enough for half the room to hear, what he'd do if somebody actually tried something with Tyson standing right there. Marcus laughed, the easy laugh of a man who has told this story 100 times and enjoys telling it again. Man, ain't nobody trying anything, he said. I've cleared rooms bigger than this by myself. Football players, gang guys, drunk billionaires, don't matter. Anybody comes near Mike, they're going through me first, and I promise you, they ain't getting far. The actor grinned and pointed, half joking, toward the window. What about that guy? Little dude's been standing there all night, not saying a word. Kind of creepy. Marcus glanced over. The small man in black met his eyes without flinching, without looking away, without doing anything at all, which, for reasons Marcus couldn't name, irritated him more than if the man had glared. Him, Marcus said, loud enough now that a dozen people had turned to listen. That little guy. I could pick him up with one arm. A few people laughed. Marcus, warming to his audience, kept going. Probably some martial arts guy, right? They always look like that. All these dudes think they're Bruce Lee till somebody actually swings on them. Real fighting ain't flips and kicks, man. Real fighting is size. Real fighting is me." The small man's expression didn't change. He set his water glass down on the windowsill, unhurried, and walked toward the group. The room's temperature shifted the way it does, right before something happens that everyone will be talking about for years. The approach. He stopped a comfortable distance from Marcus, not close enough to be threatening, not far enough to be dismissed. His voice, when it came, was quiet, even, almost gentle. "You said my name." Marcus blinked. "Say what?" "Bruce Lee." The man said, "You used my name as a joke. I'd like you to know it wasn't a joke to me." There was a full second of silence before the room understood what had just been said, and another second before half the room decided it must be a bit. Some kind of bizarre look-alike hire for the party. A prank arranged by someone with a strange sense of humor. Laughter started to build at the edges of the crowd. Marcus laughed loudest of all. "Bruce Lee's dead, man. Been dead 50 years. You lost, buddy." "I understand why you'd think that," the man said, still perfectly calm. "But I'd ask you to be careful assuming what a man is capable of because of how much of him you can see." Marcus looked him up and down again. The narrow shoulders, the plain clothes, the complete absence of anything resembling a fighter's swagger, and shook his head, grinning at the crowd like he'd been handed a gift. "Careful," Marcus said. "Little man, I could put you through that window and not lose a wink of sleep over it." "You could try," the man said. His voice hadn't risen at all. "I'd rather you didn't. But if you need to, I understand." The crowd had gone fully silent now. Somewhere behind them, Tyson himself had noticed a shift in the room and turned to watch, more curious than concerned. He'd seen Marcus talk down 100 loudmouths over the years and had no reason to think tonight was different. Marcus, his pride now fully engaged in front of an audience that included his own boss, reached out with one heavy hand and shoved the man's shoulder. Not a full blow, a warning push, the kind meant to make a smaller man stumble back and think twice. The push never landed the way it was supposed to. 3 seconds. What happened next took less time than it takes to describe it, and most of the people in the room would spend years afterward arguing about exactly what they'd seen, because none of them had seen it clearly enough to be sure. In the first second, the man's shoulder simply wasn't where Marcus's hand expected it to be. A small rotation, no bigger than a few inches, and Marcus's push traveled forward into empty air, his own weight suddenly unsupported by the resistance he'd been counting on. In the second, the man's hand rose, not a punch, not a strike anyone in the room could clearly name, and made contact with the inside of Marcus's extended elbow at the precise angle where 260 pounds of forward momentum has no good options left. Marcus's arm folded, his balance, already compromised by the missed push, tipped forward. In the third second, a foot swept low and fast beneath Marcus's lead leg at the exact moment all that weight had committed to it, and Marcus Webb, 6'4", 260 pounds, 20 years without ever touching the floor in anger, went down hard onto the lounge's marble tile. The room did not make a sound. Marcus lay there for a moment, stunned less by pain than by the sheer impossibility of what had just happened. He tried to push himself up, and found his arm wouldn't fully cooperate, the joint still ringing from the lock that had folded it. He looked up at the small man, standing exactly where he'd been standing before, hands loose at his sides, breathing normally, expression unchanged. "How?" Marcus started, and couldn't finish the sentence. The man extended his hand down toward Marcus, palm open. Not a gesture of dominance, an offer. Marcus stared at it for a long moment before he took it. He was pulled to his feet with a grip that was gentle now, careful. Nothing like the force that had put him on the ground 3 seconds earlier. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you," the man said quietly, meant only for Marcus, though half the room could still hear. "You made an assumption about what a small man can do. That assumption has probably kept you safe 100 times. Tonight it didn't." Marcus rubbed his elbow, working the joint, still trying to process what his own body had just told him. "Who taught you that?" 20 years of training does most of the teaching," the man said. "The rest, you learn from getting hit by people who didn't underestimate you." Across the room, Mike Tyson had gone very still, watching his own bodyguard, a man he trusted with his life for years, pick himself up off a marble floor after 3 seconds against someone he outweighed by more than 100 pounds. He didn't laugh. He didn't say anything at all. He simply watched. The way fighters watch things that matter. The lesson. The party resumed slowly. The way parties do after something has interrupted their rhythm. The DJ found the volume knob again. Conversations rebuilt themselves in nervous fragments. But nobody in that room forgot what they'd seen. Marcus found the man again near the window 20 minutes later, this time approaching him without an audience, without pride standing between them. "I've been doing this job 20 years, Marcus said. "Never been put down like that. Not once. Size wins most fights before they start." The man said, "That's true, and it's not nothing. Most people who threaten a room back down the second they see someone your size in front of them. But the ones who don't back down, the ones who actually mean it, they're not fighting your size. They're fighting your structure, your balance, your habits. Your size protected you from 100 fights that never really started. It didn't teach you what to do, and the one that did." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "You could have really hurt me back there." "I could have," the man agreed. "I didn't want to. There's a difference between proving a point and proving you're dangerous. I only needed the first one." Marcus nodded slowly, something shifting behind his eyes. Not humiliation anymore, something closer to respect earned the hard way. "Teach me something. Not tonight. Whenever you've got time." The man almost smiled. "I don't have a school anymore. Haven't in a long time. But principles don't need a school to be taught. Come find me tomorrow, before you go back to thinking your size is the whole answer." Afterward, nobody at that party could ever fully agree on what they'd witnessed, and the man in black slipped out before the night ended, before anyone thought to properly ask his name a second time or take his photograph. The story spread anyway, the way stories like this always do. Softened at first, then sharpened again with every retelling, until it had traveled far beyond the room where it happened. Marcus Webb kept his job. He kept his size, too. That never changed. But the people who worked alongside him in the years after swore something in him was different. He trained differently. He watched rooms differently. He stopped assuming that the quietest man in the corner was the least dangerous one in it. Years later, when people asked him about the night he ended up on the floor of a Las Vegas penthouse, Marcus told the story the same way every time, without embarrassment, without exaggeration. "I spent 20 years believing that a man's size told you everything you needed to know about what he could do to you," he'd say. "It took 3 seconds to learn how wrong I was. Best 3 seconds of my life, honestly. I just wish it hadn't hurt so much finding that out." He never did learn the man's real name for certain. He didn't need to. The lesson had already done its work, the same lesson, the legend says, that a small man in a black shirt has been quietly teaching loud men in crowded rooms for as long as anyone can remember, that the most dangerous person in the room is rarely the one who looks like it. Again, to be clear, this story is fictional and not based on any real event involving Mike Tyson, his security staff, or Bruce Lee, who passed away in 1973.